All right, let's dive right in. Picture this. You are sitting on a hiring committee for a top-tier national university. You're tasked with recruiting a new professor, specifically in a highly practical field like school counseling. Now, we usually think of higher education as this, ivory tower, a place hyper-focused on publication counts and abstract theories. But today, in this explainer, we're going to flip that assumption on its head. We are deconstructing a totally fascinating real-world portfolio, the professional dossier of Dr. He Yao Jin, and we're going to evaluate it exactly as that high-level university selection committee would.
So here is our roadmap for today's evaluation. We'll start with the key perspective, move into the wiser theory, check out practical verification, look at system cooperation, then the training blueprint, and finally wrap up with the mission of a decade.
Okay, Section 1. Key perspective in university recruitment.
So, keeping our university selection committee hats on, we have to wrestle with the classic higher ed dilemma. You've got a stack of impressive resumes, but what actually matters more? Is it pure academic research, or is it grounded frontline experience? I mean, in a field like counseling, a professor who literally only knows the theory, they're probably going to struggle to prep their students for the sheer chaos of a real school environment. Well, today's portfolio attempts to prove that you can, and honestly, you absolutely should, demand both.
Moving to Section 2, Constructing the Wiser Theory. Right, so before a candidate gets their boots muddy with frontline work, they need a rock-solid structural framework. You can't just wing it. For this candidate, that foundation is the wiser school counseling system. Now that's not just some academic buzzword. It's an ecological collaboration approach. Basically what that means is that everything concerning the student, we're talking their family, their teachers, their peers, the whole shebang, must be actively included in the counseling process. It completely shifts the focus. You're no longer trying to just fix an isolated child, you're healing and supporting the entire ecosystem around them.
The real genius, though, is how this theory actually gets structured into actionable tiers. It's broken down into 3 levels. First, you've got primary counseling. Think of this as general wellness and prevention for like 80% of the student body, mostly led by the principal and homeroom teachers. Then, secondary counseling steps in for individualized intervention. This is for students who need more specific help, handled by the counseling office. Finally, tertiary counseling is the heavy lifting. That's intensive resource integration, bringing in outside psychologists and social workers for severe cases. From a university's perspective, they want to see that a candidate knows exactly where to deploy resources at every single level of this matrix.
Which brings us to Section 3, Practical Verification in Schools. Because, let's be honest, a theory on a whiteboard is still just a theory. The big question is, how did this candidate verify these ideas during his actual time at Dongman Elementary School? Well, you look for visual proof of adaptability. Take sand play therapy, for instance. When you see students using toy soldiers, animals, and physical elements in the sand, they're expressing internal conflicts that they just don't have the vocabulary for yet. This is huge. It shows a recruiter that the candidate has the hands-on chops to use diverse media to build trust with kids. They aren't just lecturing about connection. They are highly skilled practitioners doing the work.
And that deep diagnostic skill pops up again with student artwork. Think about the classic house tree person assessment or a really complex family dynamic sketch. The candidate doesn't just treat these as fun little art projects. No, they are precise tools used to decode psychological states and uncover hidden family tensions. If you're a university hiring committee, knowing your new professor can teach graduate students how to accurately read these vivid images, that is absolutely invaluable.
But it's not all just empathy and art. It's backed by incredibly rigorous organization. Being able to map out a detailed flowchart for emotional and behavioral counseling is concrete proof of systematic case management. It shows exactly how a student moves from that first evaluation to group counseling and how outside medical or social welfare systems get seamlessly integrated. It proves to us that the candidate doesn't just juggle a few cases. They engineer entire management systems.
Let's look at Section 4, Cross-System Cooperation and Impact.
A top-tier professor really can't just be brilliant in a one-on-one room. They have to influence the broader educational ecosystem. You want someone who can command an intimate, small-case management meeting just as well as they can lead a massive teacher counseling training group. Bridging those gaps is everything. He's not just talking to the students, right? He's actively training the teachers, he's collaborating with parents, and he's coordinating with specialized social workers. He essentially becomes the central node in a very complex network of care.
I absolutely love this next detail. Imagine an EQ, an emotional quotient feedback sheet,
but designed with super familiar, friendly cartoon characters. Why on earth does a prestigious university committee care about cartoons? Because it shows a profound understanding of real-world communication. By making the feedback sheet approachable and fun, it successfully gets parents, teachers, and counselors all on the same page, providing positive reinforcement for the child. It takes these high-level psychological goals and packages them so literally everyone can engage with them. It's a game changer.
And talk about a multi-dimensional candidate. The contrast between the micro and macro levels here is wild. One day, you're coordinating a whole school Little Red Riding Hood play for sexual assault prevention, which is incredibly engaging grassroots primary prevention. The next day, you're deep in an academic exchange with a prominent U.S. counseling expert, a candidate who is equally comfortable directing first graders in a play as they are debating high-level international theory. That's exactly the kind of range a university wants.
All right, Section 5, Blueprint for Training Talent.
Now we hit a critical pivot in our evaluation. At the end of the day, a university professor must excel at mentoring the next generation of educators. What stands out in this candidate's blueprint is the crystal clear, structured expectations for different levels of higher ed. They explicitly lay out that undergrads need to focus on foundational skills, things like remediation, leading small groups, handling basic cases. But graduate students, they get pushed toward high-level competencies. We're talking system evaluation, crisis management, professional consultation. This tells the hiring committee, hey, this person already knows exactly how to build a rigorous, stepped curriculum.
And that philosophy translates perfectly into long-term professional development. The candidate maps out a highly realistic, decade-long career evolution for a school psychologist. It starts with the novice phase, years 1 to 3. We were honestly just trying to stabilize cases. Then it moves through intermediate, cooperation, all the way to year 10 and beyond, where a professional is actually integrating school policy and leading systemic change. A professor who gets this timeline isn't just preparing students for their first day, they're setting them up for a lifelong, impactful career.
Finally, Section 6, the mission of a decade. So, we've analyzed the theory, the practical verification, the systems, and the teaching blueprint. If you are that university selection committee, you're looking at this candidate's real-world network as your ultimate return on investment. They aren't just bringing textbook knowledge. They are walking through the door with ready-made internship pipelines for your students, leadership connections within national counseling associations, and deep, trusting relationships with school principals. They are literally offering to plug the university directly into the active, beating heart of the regional education system.
And then there's the emotional core of the whole portfolio. Borrowing from classical philosophy, the candidate states, 10 years sharpening a sword. At 50, I know the decrees of heaven. My mission is cultivating school counseling talent. I mean, wow. That isn't just another bullet point on a resume. That is a passionate, lifelong declaration of purpose. For a university, you quickly realize you aren't just hiring an employee. You are recruiting a leader driven by a profound sense of mission.
So we'll wrap up with this final thought. When we deconstruct an ideal candidate's portfolio from the strict perspective of a national university, it becomes incredibly clear. The real magic happens right at the intersection of high-level theory and muddy boots experience. So how does this perfect integration actually shape the future of our educational system? Well, it ensures that the teachers of tomorrow are being guided by those who have truly mastered the messy realities of today. It's a powerful reminder that the best professors don't just research the world from afar, they've already been out there changing it. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how we build the future of education.